Hi and welcome to the first part of moving from Heroic to Mythic Tomb of Sargeras. This is all about people who will have progressed through Heroics, taking a few weeks to do that, now wanting to move on to the Mythic fights and want to know what are the key points for that. Do note that these are not all-in strategy guides. You can easily find that on a channel such as Fat Boss. This is all about the small points that repeatedly wipe people until they get it into their thick heads what they need to do. As such, this mostly focuses on the individual rather than the raid at large. In this first part, we'll be looking at Goroth and Demonic Inquisition. Now on Goroth, I'll be assuming you know all the heroic mechanics. There are effectively two extra things to bear in mind on Mythic, but there are also a couple of other things that can easily wipe you. The first and main thing to note is that every now and then you get what is called Rain of Brimstone. These are three large circles that spawn in random parts of the room. Now it's very important to note that you could get all three spawning right near the boss. You could get all three spawning nowhere near the boss, right out at range. You could get some at melee, some at range, some in the middle, whatever. It's completely random where they are. As soon as they spawn in, you need to be alert to it. People need to be calling out where they are. Now this Rain of Brimstone, if not soaked, will summon in a Brimstone Infernal. You've seen these on the trash just before Goroth. You really don't want these in the fight itself. It can easily be an automatic wipe. It is essential that all three Rains of Brimstone are soaked. The Rain of Brimstone does enough damage to easily one-shot a single player. They do enough damage to almost certainly kill two players stood in it, and they do enough damage for even three to think twice, especially if they're not on full health. You ideally want 4 people stood in each of these. The major reason why this is such a threat to your killing the boss is not because it's difficult to move to a brown circle and stand in it for a few seconds. It is because your DPS whores are unlikely to want to move, especially in the case of melee, if it's away from the boss. So here's the thinking. People will think to themselves, I'll leave it for other people to do. I'm having some good procs here. I want to rank high. But here's the thing. Think about the maths of this. You want 4 people in each one. So that means you need 12 people. Well, that's assuming you get exactly 4 in each one for a start. You might get 5 who happen to soak one because it's near to them. That means you need more than 12 people altogether realistically to make sure there's at least 4 in each one. Then there might be 3 people with Crashing Comet on them. You don't want people with Crashing Comet going into soak it. That'll be about as welcome as a fox in a chicken coop, because when their Crashing Comet goes off, they're going to debuff everyone else that was soaking with them. So those people should not soak it. They should move away from others as is normal. There are the 2 tanks. Now tanks sure could use a defensive cooldown and potentially solo soak one, but that's inadvisable because they should be using their cooldowns for when they need it in the fight itself. You can also have people individually soak it if they use an immunity, but these should always be saved for towards the end of the fight if lots of people are dead and you may not have enough to soak as well. It needs to be in everyone's mindset, apart from the tanks and apart from the people with Crashing Comets, that you must soak one. And where you see a Rain of Brimstone not being soaked by many people, you should get to that one. Even if it's melee, it means herring across the other end of the room with a movement speed increase. This thing will kill you all day and all night until people get it into their thick heads that everyone needs to soak. The other key mythic change is that when infernal spikes are destroyed, it does damage to the raid for each spike that goes. Now of course when infernal burning comes in, all of the spikes currently up will be destroyed, so you don't really want a whole forest of them. That means you need to carefully control the number of spikes. When you get a shattering star, you obviously need to go behind at least 1 spike to make sure that you don't die. However, if it looks like there are quite a lot of spikes up, you might need to go through several just to thin their numbers a little bit. If you see during an infernal burning that there are a lot of spikes up, then what you should ideally try and do is to use cooldowns. Personal cooldowns, maybe group up behind the same spike and use a healer's AoE cooldown as well if necessary. The other thing that is likely to cause wipes on this is ranged not considering their position carefully. The fell eruptions, which is the green fire that moves in from the pools, will destroy any spike that it touches. If ranged are located near these when infernal spikes come in, they're very likely to spawn them near the fire, which means that by the time you need those spikes to hide behind for infernal burning, they will have been destroyed or will be about to be destroyed by the fire. It's absolutely essential that ranged DPS and healers consider very carefully their positioning and shift it as necessary to make sure that they're reasonably spread out at both left and right hand sides of the room, and that they can spawn spikes where there is no fire. Other than this, the fight remains largely the same. If people keep in mind mechanics over DPS, then the fight is relatively straightforward. However, for every person you have focusing on their output, you are more likely to wipe. And usually this boss only goes down when enough people, i.e. pretty much all 20, get it into their heads that these mechanics are important. You are not in a race against time with this fight. You will not likely reach the end rage. This is a case of killing the boss not before time runs out, but before your brains run out. Demonic Inquisition has essentially one new mechanic on Mythic, and that is the Tormented Fragment. When you reach high stacks of Torment and use your extra action button to go into the cage and beat the Tormented Soul to pick up the orbs and get yourself back out, removing your Torment stacks, a Tormented Fragment comes out as well. These will fixate on a player and chase them round. They can be slowed and they need to be killed. When they are killed, they will explode, dealing shadow damage to everyone within 8 yards. So ideally they'd be killed away from melee, but that can't always be helped. What is particularly annoying about these ads is that for every extra one that comes out, it basically buffs all the other ones still up. Now, this doesn't seem too excessive. You could just think we'll keep on top of the ads and it should be all fine. There are two reasons why this could actually lead to some trouble. First of all, you'll get a lot of people wanting to focus on AoEing these ads down at the expense of boss damage. This is careless thinking because you do need to kill the bosses before these ads overwhelm you. The second point is this. Unlike on normal in Heroic, where you can let your Torment build up, then go inside, remove the stacks and come back out again, you want to avoid getting Torment at all costs. Remember, these ads are only produced when people have to reset their Torment stacks. So you want to get into a situation where you actually don't need to increase your Torment stacks apart from the tanks. That means it's absolutely essential that certain things are borne in mind. You must interrupt every single Pangs of Guilt. So there needs to be 3 melee probably on an interrupt rotation. Whenever anyone cannot do their interrupts, they need to call out for someone else to cover it. Whenever anyone gets Echoing Anguish, they must not be dispelled. That person needs to move immediately away from others, then call for a dispel on themselves, and then they need to be dispelled very quickly to avoid torment building up on them. But also you don't want to be spreading that torment to other people. Although it's fine to have Atragon and Belak stacked towards the beginning for cleave damage, it is vital that Atragon is moved away before the Fell Squall and not a few seconds before it. If you try and move it a few seconds before, he's probably going to stop still and cast before the tanks can move him right away. So a good 7 or 8 seconds before that needs to be moved, and it needs to be moved far away enough from Belak that natural cleave, passive cleave that can't be helped, will not cleave onto Belak while he is doing his Fell Squall. It is absolutely essential that you are not doing damage as far as can be helped to Atragon during the Bonesaw or Belak during the Fell Squall. In all other regards, it needs to be treated just like on normal in Heroic. Make sure calcified quills are moved away from everyone else so it doesn't knock people up. But you really do need to reduce massively the amount of torment you're taking. Ideally, you want most players never getting anywhere near a full bar of torment. So those are the key points to bear in mind for Goroth and Demonic Inquisition. In the next video, I'll be covering Harjatan and Sisters of the Moon. I'll be covering that in a few days' time. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.